Hello friends, welcome to Shriram's. The topic for today's discussion is Impact of Climate Change on Oceans. How do greenhouse gases affect the ocean temperature? About 90% of the excess heat trapped by the atmospheric greenhouse gases is eventually soaked up by the world's oceans. How much has the ocean warmed because of this? The sea surface layer has warmed by over 0.5 degrees Celsius in the last century. Why is it so less compared to the atmospheric temperature? This is because oceans are large and the temperature change to the seawater can seem small. However, it is still enough to cause significant disruption and the warming is accelerating. Why does the sea level rise due to warming? Things expand as they warm, becoming less dense and taking up more space. The oceans are no different. How much sea level rise has happened? Between 1993 and 2010, thermal expansion is ought to have raised sea levels by an average of 1.1 millimeters a year. How does sea temperature affect the atmosphere? Increased sea surface temperatures are associated with making hurricanes and tropical cyclones more powerful, potentially increasing the number of most severe Category 4 or 5 storms that strike islands and coastal areas. Does it accelerate global warming also? Yes. Warming water can dissolve less carbon dioxide, which means more will stay in the atmosphere to accelerate global warming. What is ocean acidification? As carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it reacts to form carbonic acid, a fairly weak acid, but enough to alter the pH of seawater, which is naturally alkaline. Since the Industrial Revolution, dissolved carbon dioxide is estimated to have lowered the average pH of the top layer of oceans by 0.1 pH units from about 8.2 to 8.1. How does it affect the sea life? The increase in acidity is particularly bad news for shellfish and other forms of sea life that use mineral calcium carbonate to form their shells and exoskeletons. More acidic water can hold less of this mineral, so there is less available for so-called calcifying organisms. How will it affect coastal ecosystem in countries like India? Beach and dune environments face more severe and frequent flooding and erosion, while sensitive freshwater habitats including mudflats and marshes needed for bird species to breed will become swamped with seawater. Are ocean currents vulnerable to the effects of climate change? Yes. Huge amount of fresh water pouring in at poles lowers the density of seawater, making it slower to sink. Without the same driving downward force, the whole global cycle can weaken. In 2018, scientists suggest that major current in Atlantic Ocean had slowed by about 15%, and some studies predict that could worsen to more than 30% by 2100. What effect will this have on Earth? Scientists say slower ocean currents can bring significant changes in the Earth's atmosphere, and so the weather. Winters in Europe can be much colder. Meanwhile, the waters of South Atlantic could be warmer because sea surface temperatures influences wind and rainfall. This could also disrupt monsoon cycles that are vital for crops across Asia and South America. How will it affect food security for humans? A 2012 report by Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that marine and freshwater capture fisheries and aquaculture provide 4.3 billion people with about 15% of their animal protein. By altering distribution of fish stock and increasing the vulnerability of fish species to diseases, ocean warming is a serious risk to food security and people's livelihoods globally. What can be done to reduce the impact? First, there is a need to achieve mitigation targets set by the Paris Agreement on Climate Change and hold the increase in global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. Second, well-managed protection areas can help conserve and protect ecologically and biologically significant marine habitats. This will regulate human activities in these habitats and prevent environmental degradation. How can human adaptation be improved? Governments can introduce policies to keep fisheries production with sustainable limits, for example, by setting precautionary hatch limits and eliminating subsidies to prevent overfishing. Coastal setback zones, which prohibit all or certain types of development along the shoreline, can minimize the damage from coastal flooding and erosion. New monitoring tools can be developed to forecast and control marine disease outbreaks. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast.